ክቡራትና ክቡራን ተመልካቾቻችን እንደምን ሰነበታችሁ? ይህ ቲጂ ቴሌቪዥን ነው። አዘጋጅና አቅራቢ መስፍን በዙ ነኝ። ተመልካቾቻችን የቲጂ ቴሌቪዥን መርሃ ግብርን የሚተላለፍባቸውን የቴሌቪዥን ጣቢያዎች ለማወቅ በwww.tgtelevision.com ውስጥ በመግባት TGTV ስኬጁል የሚለውን በመጫን መረዳት ይችላሉ። በተጨማሪም የቲጂ ቴሌቪዥን መርሃ ግብር እሁድ በዋሽንግተን ዲሲ ሰዓት አቆጣጠር በ6 PM በቀጥታ በኢንተርኔት ስለሚተላለፍ በwww.tgtelevision.com ውስጥ በመግባት በባንዲራችን ያጌጠችውን ቴሌቪዥን በመጫን የቲጂ ቴሌቪዥን መርሃ ግብርን በቀጥታ መከታተል ይቻላል። ተመልካቾቻችን በቅርቡ በፕሬዝዳንት ባራክ ኦባማ የተጋበዙ 50 የሚሆኑ የአፍሪካ መሪዎች በዋሽንግተን ዲሲ በመገኘት በU.S የአፍሪካ መሪዎች ስብሰባ ላይ ተካፍለው ነበር። እኔም በዚህ የመሪዎች ስብሰባ ላይ ለመገኘት የሚዲያ ዕውቅና እንዲሰጠኝ በጠየቁት መሰረት ከብዙ አመልካቾች መካከል ቲጂ ቴሌቪዥንም የሚዲያ ዕውቅና ተሰጥቶት በዚህ የመሪዎች ስብሰባ ላይ ተገኝቼ እንድዘግብ በመደረጉ የተሰማኝ ኩራትና ደስታ ወሰን የለውም። በዚህ የመሪዎች ስብሰባ ጊዜም በርግጥም ዴሞክራሲ ምን እንደሚመስል ለሚገባቸው የታየበትና የተጠቀሙበት እንዲሁም ደግሞ አንዳንድ ተቃዋሚ ነን የሚሉ ደግሞ በኢትዮጵያችን ስም እያመካኙ ሀገራችንን የሚያሰድብ ድርጊት እያደረጉ ምን ያህል ሕገወጥ መሆናቸውን ያሳዩበት ወቅት ነበር። ወደዚህ በኋላ መለስበታለሁ። በቀጥታ ወደ U.S አፍሪካ መሪዎች ስብሰባ ዝግጅት ወስዳቸዋለሁ። የአሜሪካንና የአፍሪካ መሪዎች ስብሰባ የተከፈተው ሰኞ ኦገስት 4 በናሽናል አካዳሚ ኦፍ ሳይንስ በተደረጉት የተለያዩ ስብሰባዎች ነበር። የመጀመሪያው ስብሰባ የተጀመረው ሲቪል ሶሳይቲ ፎረም በሚል ርዕስ በተዘጋጀው ስብሰባ ነበር። በመቀጠልም የተለያዩ ስብሰባዎች ከተካሄዱ በኋላም የቀጠለው ውይይት ሪሳይለንስ ኤንድ ፉድ ሴኩሪቲ ኢን ቼንጂንግ ክላይሜት በሚል ርዕስ የተዘጋጀው ስብሰባ ነበር። ለማስታወስ ያህል ሜይ 18 2012 በዚሁ በዋሽንግተን ዲሲ ከተማ በሮናልድ ሬጋን ህንጻ ውስጥ የአሜሪካና 4 የአፍሪካ መሪዎች በተገኙበት የምግብ ዋስትናን በሚመለከት ስብሰባ ሲደረግ ኢትዮጵያ ሀገራችን በጥሩ ምሳሌነት መቅረቧ ይታወሳል። አሁንም ከሁለት ዓመት በኋላ በዚህ ሪሳይለንስ ኤንድ ፉድ ሴኩሪቲ ኢን ቼንጂንግ ክላይሜት በሚል ርዕስ በተዘጋጀው የአሜሪካና የአፍሪካ መሪዎች ስብሰባ ላይ እንዲሁ የምግብ ዋስትናን በሚመለከት አሁንም ኢትዮጵያ ሀገራችን በጥሩ ምሳሌነት በመቅረብ የኢትዮጵያው ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር አቶ ኃይለማርያም ደሳለኝ ኢትዮጵያን በመወከል በዚህ ስብሰባ ላይ ተሳትፈው ነበር። በዚህም አጋጣሚም ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ኃይለማርያም ደሳለኝ በዚህ በአሜሪካና በአፍሪካ መሪዎች ስብሰባ ላይ ተገኝተው ወደ ኢትዮጵያ ከመመለሳቸው በፊት ከቲጂ ቴሌቪዥን ጋር ቃለ መጠይቅ እንዲያደርጉ በጠየቁት መሰረት ጥያቄ ተቀባይነት አግኝቶም ከጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ኃይለማርያም ደሳለኝ ጋር ቆይታ አድርጌያለሁ። ከጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ኃይለማርያም ደሳለኝ ጋር ባደረኩትም ቆይታ ስለ ኢትዮጵያ ባንዲራ ጠይቄያቸው ነበር። ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ እየተደረገ ስላለው ልማትና ስለ አባይ ግድብም ጠይቄያቸው ነበር። እንዲሁም ኢህአዴግ የግንቦት 7 ዋና ጸሐፊ አቶ አንዳርጋቸው ጽጌን በቁጥጥር ስር ካደረገ በኋላ መረጃ ለማውጣት ሲል ኢህአዴግ አቶ አንዳርጋቸው ጽጌን እያሰቃየ ነው ስለሚባለው ሁኔታ አንስቼባቸው ነበር። ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ኃይለማርያም ደሳለኝ የኢህአዴግ መንግስት ዘላለማዊ አይደለም፣ ነገር ግን ኢህአዴግን እቃወማለሁ በማለት አገርን መጉዳት፣ አገር ላይ ጥላሸት ማልበስ ትክክል አይደለም በማለት ለአንድ ሰዓት ያህል ከኔ ጋር ቆይታ አድርገዋል። ተመልካቾቻችን ይህንንም ይዤላችሁ ቀርባለሁ እንዳመልጣችሁ። ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ በፖለቲካም ሆነ በኢኮኖሚው ችግር ቢኖርም በአንጻሩ ደግሞ ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ስለሚደረገው ጥሩ ነገር ደግሞ በተለይ በአሜሪካን ከፍተኛ ባለስልጣኖች አንደበት በተደጋጋሚ ከ50 የአፍሪካ ሀገሮች መካከል ኢትዮጵያችን ተመርጣ በተደጋጋሚ በጥሩ ምሳሌነት እየተነሳች ሲነገርላት ምንም እንኳን የኢህአዴግን መንግስት በመቃወም በመደገፍ ገለልተኛም ሆነን የተሰማራን ኢትዮጵያን ብንሆንም ኢትዮጵያን የምንወድና ለሀገራችን ጥሩ የምንመኝ ከሆነ የኢትዮጵያችን ጥሩ ነገር ኢትዮጵያችን በጥሩ ስትነሳ ልንደሰት እንጂ ሊከፋን አይገባም። እንግዲህ ይህ የአሜሪካና የአፍሪካ መሪዎች ስብሰባ በተጀመረበት ቀን ከናሽናል አካዳሚ ኦፍ ሳይንስ ውጪ ሆነው መብታቸው ተጠብቆላቸው ማንም ሳይመካቸው ሳይተናኮላቸው ሳይሰድባቸው ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ይደረጋል የሚሉትን መጥፎ ነገር እየተናገሩ ሲቃወሙ እንዲሁም ደግሞ በናሽናል አካዳሚ ኦፍ ሳይንስ አዳራሽ ውስጥ ደግሞ ኢትዮጵያ የምግብ ዋስትናን በሚመለከት ላደረገችው ጥረት ደግሞ ኢትዮጵያችን ጥሩ ምሳሌ በመሆን ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ኃይለማርያም ደሳለኝ የተሳተፉበት ዝግጅት ሲካሄድ ነበር። ዴሞክራሲ ማለት ይህ ነው። እንግዲህ ይህንን ዝግጅት የማቅረብላችሁ ተመልካቾቻችን ከምንጮቼ እያልኩ ሳይሆን እኔ ያየሁትንና እናንተም እንድታዩት በማለት ነው። ስለዚህም ይህንን ዝግጅት እስከ መጨረሻው እንድትከታተሉ በትህትና ጋብዛለሁ። ከዛ በፊት ግን ሁላችንም ልንረዳ የሚገባን ቢኖር ኢትዮጵያችን ሰላም ካልሆነች እኛም ምንም እንኳን ውጭ ሀገር ብንኖርም ሰላም ስለማንሆን እግዚአብሔር ኢትዮጵያ ሀገራችንን በሰላም ለዘላለም ይጠብቅልን፣ ጠላቶቿን ያስወግድልን።
የምንታየው ሰዎችን ረዳ ቢገባን ትርጉሙ ሁሉም ባገር ነው።
ኢትዮጵያችን በምሳሌነት የቀረበችበት የሪሳይለንስ ኤንድ ፉድ ሴኩሪቲ ኢን ቼንጂንግ ክላይሜት በሚል ርዕስ የተዘጋጀው የአሜሪካና የአፍሪካ መሪዎች ስብሰባ የተጀመረው የአሜሪካው የውጭ ጉዳይ ሚኒስትር ጆን ኬሪ የመግቢያ ንግግር ካደረጉ በኋላ ነበር።
The realities of what's staring us in the face in terms of better agriculture and better food production, the better distribution, we will fail. So that is exactly what this portion of the African Leaders Summit is all about. And let's get started. We have a terrific panel. It's my pleasure to turn it over to my friend and my colleague and a great advocate for this, a passionate advocate for this, the Administrator of USAID, Raj Shah. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Secretary Kerry, for that outstanding and exciting opening of this Food Security, Resilience, and Climate event at the President's African Leaders Summit. We're, of course, very enthusiastic to have the opportunity to be with leaders from across the United States, across Africa, experts in agriculture and climate change, and a team of people who have been working together for years to really ensure we tackle the dual challenges of preventing climate change from wiping out our gains and continuing to fight hunger and extreme poverty where it is far too prevalent. And I am thrilled that Secretary Kerry has lent his tremendous leadership to this topic, not just as Secretary of State, but during his long tenure in the United States Senate. And of course, we all know that the passion and commitment to this subject comes from President Obama himself, who in his inaugural address, his first inaugural address, made the bold claim that we would help small-scale farmers, primarily women, all around the world. And in just February of his first year in office, launched the L'Aquila initiative at his first G20 to raise resources and political commitment around the world to tackle hunger, create climate-smart agricultural opportunities, and build greater resilience around our planet. I am so excited to be here today with outstanding leaders who have been fighting this fight and succeeding in Africa and the United States. Prime Minister Hailemariam of Ethiopia needs no introduction to you, but he has positioned Ethiopia at the cutting edge of agricultural development, a founding member of the New Alliance for Food Security, and really a model for both rapid reductions in child death and parallel increases in agricultural productivity. Thank you, Prime Minister, for being with us. Representative Betty McCollum is a Democrat from Minnesota, is leading the charge in Congress on a bipartisan basis to help institutionalize initiatives like Feed the Future and ensure that our commitment to tackling hunger and extreme poverty remains a major and central part of American foreign policy for years and decades to come. Thank you, Betty, for joining us. And Madam Zuma, the chairperson of the African Union, a leader in her on a range of issues, probably the most passionate and effective and strongest advocate on behalf of women and girls in the context of African development. We are so proud to associate this effort with your leadership, and we recognize the very central and important role you have been playing to ensure that food security remains at the top of the agenda in Africa and around the world. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to start with a question for the Prime Minister. We have had the chance to work together for years, and you have recently joined 50 other heads of state to commit to a new set of ambitious goals, the declaration that Secretary Kerry just made reference to. Could you talk about why these goals are important and what you believe they will mean for Ethiopia as you look forward to a day when you've wiped out hunger and protected vulnerable communities because of the strength and resilience of your economy?
Thank you very much, Raj. First of all, I would like to thank you for a very important gathering today, simply because African Union has launched a year celebration on agriculture and food security this 2014. And I think we have come to Malabo simply because we have launched 10 years ago a program called Comprehensive African Agricultural Development Program, which is an instrument for the last 10 years. We have gone through this program, and each one of us has commitment to this program to modernize our agricultural system in Africa. And in this regard, we evaluated in Malabo the progress we have made in comprehensive agricultural, African agricultural program. And in that evaluation, we came to know that agriculture remains to be, again, the source of an engine of growth for Africa. And, the livelihood of many Africans is based on agricultural produce. And we should focus on agriculture time again for the future of the coming 10 years as well. But we have challenges. In many African countries now, the climate change has created lots of complications in productivity increment. And, the production has declined because of the climate change. And the agricultural share of our GDP in some countries has gone down to 4% or so. So this shows that we have to take care of the climate change issue as an African leaders and African governments at this time seriously, so that we can combat the climate change issue. properly. So we introduced now in our next step in the program that climate smart agricultural production system should be the basis for the future program we have launched in Africa. So I think the African leaders has come to understand the severity of climate change and its impact much more than ever now in this summit. And therefore we have to continue on to pursue and be more committed to actionable programs in each one of our countries. And therefore, this is high time for us, the African leaders, to commit ourselves to have a concrete and measurable targets for the coming 10 years. So that was the basis why we African leaders need to work very hard to combat the climate change issues. It is possible. We are, as responsible global citizens, even though our contribution is insignificant as far as the global greenhouse gas emission is concerned, but we need to focus on our own way to show that we have moral responsibility for this globe, as Secretary Kerry said. Now it is, it's high time that things are not just theoretical, but happening now in every corner of the globe. So we need to have responsibility, a moral responsibility, to discharge our own responsibility in Africa.
Well, Prime Minister, we're so proud of our partnership with Ethiopia. You have, in the last few years, protected 7 million children from requiring food assistance when the rains didn't come in 2011. You've had these big yield improvements. And as you point out, if the high-end IPCC estimates take place, you could have a 20 to 30% reduction in yields. And so your focus on behalf of the continent on climate-smart agriculture is an area where we intend to continue to be good partners, bringing American research and partnership to that task. Madam Zuma, you have, in addition to focusing on the Malabo Declaration, you have also made the point that it is women who power African farms. It's women who provide most of the labor, and we know that income gains that go to women are far more likely to reduce malnutrition, increase school attendance, and create a pathway out of poverty for communities. Could you share your impressions of our partnerships in food security and your assessment of the Malabo Declaration?
Thank you. I think you are very correct that women are the ones who at the moment power agriculture. But as one of the leaders in the African continent in that debate in Malabo said that people say hard work pays. But if women, African women, were paid for their hard work in agriculture, they would be billionaires.
That'd be nice.
But we need to ask ourselves and to help the women, why are they not billionaires with such hard work? Of course, before I get to that, let me share with you some thoughts that women had just before the Malabo, in Malabo actually, just before the summit, because they wanted to make an input into that summit themselves. And one of the things they said was they really want agriculture to be modernized. They said, at the moment, the symbol of agriculture in Africa is probably a woman holding a hoe, handheld hoe, sometimes with a child on her back. And they said, I must tell the leaders and the partners that that must stop. They want that handheld hoe in the museum. Which means they want to have access to modern implements so that they can improve the productivity. They also want access to more land, which partners can't do, but leaders can give them access to more land. So agriculture is important for the well-being of the person, for the business side. And of course, Africa still has a lot of arable land. And if we use that arable land well, we can be able to be self-sufficient. And that's what our leaders were declaring. And then we can also feed the world, but we need to process also what we produce. Because if we don't process what we produce, we export raw, but we export the jobs as well that should be remaining on the continent and being accessible to young people. But when you export raw cotton, you export that raw cotton with the jobs that it creates in its processing. So
we need those jobs in Africa.
Yes.
And we have seen through your leadership that the AU declarations are followed by countries like Ethiopia increasing their domestic investment in agriculture, knowing that agricultural investment is 3 to 4 times more likely to reduce poverty and provide women opportunities than other forms of GDP growth. So thank you for your leadership.
But lastly, we need skills, scientists who are going to innovate and make sure that we have climate smart agriculture, new implements. So we need that, not only to grow, but to grow the skills as well.
Your story about the hoe in the museum reminded me of President Obama was in Senegal last year with President Sall and had the chance to visit with a farmer named Nimna, who told him a story how she used to have a hoe and she used to work the field herself. She became part of the Feed the Future effort, and she showed him pictures of her tractor and mobile phone, which was how she was running her multi-farm enterprise at the time. Congresswoman McCollum, you are leading the charge in Congress to institutionalize this focus on climate-smart agriculture, and you have done an extraordinary job of bringing businesses and faith institutions and Republicans and Democrats together. Sometimes it seems it's hard in this town to bring everyone together around a particular idea. What is your experience on behalf of the President's food security vision?
Well, it's an honor to be here with my brothers and sisters, and your leadership on this, Doctor, has been outstanding, and I'm so proud of President Obama. Working in partnership, true partnership, because I have had the opportunity to travel in Africa a lot, and Africa knows what Africa needs. It just needs a good partner. And so the Feed the Future initiative, which is the focus of my legislation that I'm working on with members from the Republican side of the aisle, the administration, and as the administrator pointed out, is a public-private partnership here to work in partnership publicly and privately in Africa as well, is for doing just what you were describing, with a strong focus on women, because I've been out in the fields in Malawi with the women just before the rains came, and it is women, often they had children on their backs. I got to watch the children because they didn't trust me with the planting. And I'm from a farm state. But it was really interesting. The women knew what they needed. They just needed the partnership in getting it there. And your point about health and what Secretary Kerry said about education, what really convinced me that Feed the Future needs to be one of the top U.S. foreign policy tools in our toolbox for partnership is when I was going around, when I was just elected on PEPFAR, I had the opportunity of being in Tanzania and witnessing something that still haunts me to today. There were 2 women, they literally lived across the street from one another in Dar es Salaam. One had a family network and support, and she had access to food and nutrition, and she had enough weight on her to start taking ARVs. A woman right across the street from her had an 8-year-old boy who was doing the best he could through what we call panhandling, begging, to bring home a little nutrition for himself and his mother. She was not going to make it to receive ARVs, and that child was going to become an orphan. And I realized we need a whole-of-government approach, not only here in the United States, in partnership with Africa. So I'm so pleased to be here today and to be part of this outstanding panel. And it's good work that we do together. And I just want to close with this, because Feed the Future does focus on women farmers a little bit. I heard a lot of people talk about, the bread raisers, the bread earners. Well, women make the bread. We grow it and we bake it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And it's been great also to see the bipartisan support for this vision that has been fundamentally African-led. And I recognize our time is very short, but maybe I could ask Madam Zuma and Prime Minister to both offer a very quick final word. What word of advice do you have for American businesses, political leaders, cabinet secretaries, and scientists as we leave this session today and continue to commit ourselves to this partnership?
Well, thanks. I think they should believe in Africa. And secondly, I think Africa is a good partner. We know where we're going. As she has just said, we need good partners. And we think this partnership can grow even to higher heights. And we appreciate the partnership, but let's get it big.
We will be there with you. Prime Minister.
Thank you so much. First of all, we have the commitment, but we have lack of capacity to discharge the commitment we have to make an actionable programs. And we need the support of United States government and people in terms of building our capacity to enhance our fight of climate change. But also to the private sector, I would like to say that Africa is having 60% of the global Arab where you can come and invest in Africa. And therefore, this partnership will help to produce, because in the coming 30 years, we'll be having 50% more demand for food crops. And in that sense, we need to invest now so that we can reach that demand in the future. So I just want business people to come and invest in Africa.
Well, we very much endorse that vision, and Secretary Kerry noted that tomorrow we'll be making some new announcements around the new Alliance for Food Security to demonstrate that American and African businesses continue to have more and more confidence in your leadership and in Africa's growth potential from an agricultural perspective. Thank you so very much for sharing your vision and your commitment and your very real success. And I'll close this panel on the final note that since President Obama made that commitment in his inaugural address, as a result of the bipartisan support for Feed the Future, today 12 million fewer children are hungry because of this combined partnership that you lead. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
ከጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ኃይለማርያም ደሳለኝ ጋር ያደረኩት ቆይታ ይቀጥላል። ተመልካቾቻችን እስከዛው ድረስ ለሁላችንም ሰላም። ይህ ቲጂ ቴሌቪዥን ነው። አዘጋጅና አቅራቢ መስፍን በዙ ነኝ። ኢትዮጵያ ሀገራችን በሰላም ለዘላለም ትኑርልን።